Good afternoon, Scott here, known as Cantaloupe to some online, and I'm bringing another video to you on a subject that's interesting to me. It might be of interest to you or someone you know. And this is a lesser known property of having borders, having property lines, big national property lines. It's kind of the same idea really on a larger scale. And they haven't always been there. Here's the thing, they have not only migrated throughout human history, obviously. You look at a map from the past, it's not going to look the same as it does today. But there's a feature to this. Unfortunately, it's actually not a very good feature. When you formalize and calcify or crystallize the borders in a way that we have, that is committing them to a database, so to speak, with very specific and precise measurements, you create a situation where people can't be exiled anymore. There's actually quite a few impacts, but this is the one I want to cover in particular. When you can't exile people, what happens exactly? What is exile, first of all? Exile is kicking someone out. We call it deportation nowadays, and we loosely say that people have to have originated from somewhere else before we do it. But it is just exile. It's reserved only for a special class of people at the moment. And exile has been replaced to a large extent with imprisonment, right? This should be obvious. We have prisons now where it used to be exile. When we were living in a tribal situation, it was easier to kick people out of the circle than it is now, because with formal borders, obviously you can't throw anybody out, or else you're exporting them to someone else, right? That's the problem. You would be exporting your problems in a detectable, measurable way to other countries, which creates a situation, unfortunately. So our alternative, our solution to this is, instead of kicking them out, we kick them in, right? Kick people in. What's the difference, really? Turns out there's a huge difference. One of these is justifiable and the other is not. One of these protects and preserves the liberty of the accused, the other does not. One of these solves the problem and the other makes you a criminal. Imprisonment is an injury. I want to say that again. Incarceration, detention, prosecution, these are all very stressful things on the best of days. But when you are actually formally organizing and incarcerating people who should be exiled and have historically, all throughout human history, been just kicked out, sent off into the wilderness to fend for themselves, to learn a lesson, so to speak, and to perhaps come back after they learn it. Instead of doing that, you're creating an injury in a bigger, worse situation. You're burdening the taxpayer. You're creating infrastructure and systems, jobs, departments, and agencies, entire businesses and governments, just so that you can keep the people in. That's a problem. That's the difference. That's the difference of a hard property line, which is flawed in many ways. And I want to wrap up. This isn't going to be a deep dive. Hard property lines were invented by the Western Europeans. If you look at history before that, Native Americans, for example, in North America, property was a point system. You had your hut or your teepee or whatever, and that was your property, that location, that point on the map. Not a perimeter, not a boundary, a property line with a fence, which is what we all understand now, thanks to the British, thanks to Western Europeans and their exhaustion of two-dimensional map space. I want to say that again. I've talked about this in other videos. Consider you have a piece of paper. That's the land that you have. That's your country or whatever. Beyond the paper is the ocean or whatever. And you divide it up however many plots you want, 10, 100, 1,000, makes no difference. And you draw lines around your properties on that paper. Now you want to add some more people. Hold on. What do? You have an immediate problem, don't you? The problem is that all the land is spoken for. It's all owned by somebody already. And there's no more area. It's a geometry problem. Whereas before, if you had points, say you had the same number of people, same number of properties, but how hard is it to just, add a point in a sparsely populated area? Well, you're not technically on someone's property with another point because it's location based. And this is how it was meant to be. This is how the natives figured it out. And this is how it was before Western Europeans screwed it up, to be honest. And if you need more clues, refer to the first point that I made in this video, how all of a sudden you need prisons because of property lines. It's a feature of having national borders. It's a feature of having hard-coded property lines and maintaining that in a database nowadays. So exile, again, someone could survive out there. They're not your problem anymore, and that's proper. Kick them out. I'll get behind that. Someone's a criminal, someone steals or rapes or robs, someone defrauds somebody, kick them out of your community. Kick them in. You're just making it a cancer. You're turning it into a cancer of your own. And that's not okay to anybody, especially not you. Reach out if you like with questions or comments to whitehotrobot@gmail.com. Thank you.